Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Today, we're back with another value, core value. Culture Matters from a consulting advisory context. Before I unpack the word curiosity, here's a quote just for this episode. I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. Albert Einstein. The word curiosity springs to mind as a driving force of what has made all of this spring forth. Culture matters, its inception, how it started, where it started, why it started. The Culture Matters podcast, how it started, where it started, why it started. My journey as a consultant over, oh, it's got to be close to a decade and a half. It's close to a decade and a half. There's always been that consultative leaning. And I think even before that was an actual career path, an entrepreneurial path, going back to the beginnings of my entrepreneurialism, taking risk, having an idea, pursuing it curiously, passionately. Not even, I wouldn't, this is where I'm undermining myself. I was about to say, not necessarily courageously, but from survival. But that's a deeper conversation because I think, yes, courageously to take a leap of faith on an idea is or has a relationship with courage at some level. And the question becomes, what relationship does curiosity and courage? What relationship does curiosity and courage have? Why curiosity? Why curiosity as a value of culture matters, a value of being the advisor, the trusted advisor, being a competent consultant. Well, if we look, I want to go through the definitions and all that, sure, but it goes back to the beginning of Culture Matters. Why did it start? I was walking in Barnes and Noble, a domicile of curiosity, a womb of curiosity. This was a bookstore full of the treasure trove of our culture's knowledge, where I would go when I was looking for answers, crumbling from the anxieties that come with risk taking, of the fear of the unknown. And a book popped out to me. It said Uncontainable, a story about how the Container Store helped people get more organized. And in that book, it promoted the idea of its seven founding principles, these seven staples or values, principles that the company was rooted in, that it used to scale the feeling, the thoughts, the ideas around customer service that made that company so successful. Less turnover than its competitors, higher pay. These things were exciting and spiritually rewarding to me reading through, but it was that curiosity. It was that curiosity, that desire to know, that pursuit of knowledge, me going to the bookstore as a way to react to the fear that I was feeling at that time in my life of the unknown, the uncertainty, the how are we going to make the business successful? Who were we as an organization wasn't even sticking out to me, wasn't even at top of mind. It was, what am I doing here and why am I here and can I do this? It was fear of the opportunity, fear of the responsibility, and the anxiety, the crippling anxiety, the debilitating doubt that comes with taking risk that led to the pursuit of knowledge, that bookstore, that I that then would lead to some fruit, some information that would lead to an idea. That would lead to an idea. Oh, we have to have core values, and that's a call to get everyone together and to talk about them. And that's an accountability mechanism to actually share who we are as an organization, why we exist, where we're going, and get feedback from the team on how we can make things better, what's working, what's not working, creating that aura of excitement. Curiosity played a role in that. To be curious. The Culture Matters podcast, curiosities played a role in the research component, that analyst piece of doing the due diligence, preparing for the interview, preparing for the monologue, organizing what my thoughts, organizing my counterpart. So in the guest, their their story, their background, their career pathing, their education, their timeline, where they've been in their life geographically and potentially psychologically and from an educational standpoint, and what their knowledge is and their skills and or perceived skills via LinkedIn and history and timeline. And that curiosity drives the research. It drives the and it undergirds the inquiry. It undergirds the questions, right? The analyst researches, the advisor can only, well, ha, it's the advisor, the trusted advisor asks the necessary questions to know the context. The content is going to be an accumulation of life experience, of knowledge accumulation from mentors and colleagues and circumstances and books and formal and informal education, the context comes from that unique circumstance, the the preparation, the analysis, the spirit of the analyst, the research, the inquiry, the actual curiosity is like the mortar, and each brick is a question, and the mortar is this spiritual fluidity between the interviewer and the guest, or the moderator and the panel, or the host and their counterpart, the advisor, the advisee. If the consultant is looking at the organization in a consultative process, they're searching for the answers. They're searching for the questions. They're getting under every nook and cranny of the organization as a whole. The organization is the culture. The individual has a character wrapped up and interrelated with their competence, their skills, their personality style, their uh, their talents at whatever level that's been unleashed. Curiosity has played a role in the Culture Matters podcast exponential growth in the hundreds of unique human beings that have been and come back on the show. Curiosity is part of what imposes not imposes, maybe compels or inspires people to want to come back on the show. It's an act of faith. It's faith that the relationship, has a future to it. Faith that will play again. Courage to be foolish, to kneel, to bend the knee. I love this quote, curiosity. Curiosity is the wick in the candle of learning. William Arthur Ward. Here's another. Curiosity will conquer fear even more than bravery will. James Stevens. Here's another. Judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. Voltaire said that. So the advisor to advise, to deploy the content that's been accumulated over a tenure, a career of knowledge development. Because knowledge has a deceiving element to it. If you haven't listened to an episode where It's about knowledge's potential power, page 131 from 30 Days of Thought. I talk about the deceptive nature or the self-contradicting nature of knowledge. You build 50 years of experience, knowledge, and information, but it's the context that deploys it into the person or into the organization. That comes from the humble pursuit of and through inquiry. There's a humility and curiosity, I think, makes that humility smooth. It's a smooth, it's a smooth humility. It's not a forced humility. It's not a forced meekness or a manipulative posturing, but a genuine, authentic endeavor to learn and to know. Everyone becomes interesting in the spirit of curiosity, even if they have nothing perceivable or aesthetic to offer, or even if that's just the perception. There's a beauty in curiosity that is at the basis of relationship, of relating, of continual renewal, the continual renewal of a friendship, of a kinship. A curiosity turns our enemies into our friends. Curiosity alienates our friends and forces them to level up or become our enemy. We learn from them in whatever context they are labeled as relative to our curiosity. Another quote I like is, life must be lived and curiosity kept alive. One must never, for whatever reason, turn his back on life. Eleanor Roosevelt said that. So, what is curiosity from a definitional perspective? And I want to go through how curiosity, what relationship curiosity has with leadership, what it can have, the role of the trusted advisor, the spirit of culture matters from a consulting and advisory perspective, and the value of curiosity. So curiosity, a strong desire to know or learn something, an eager wish to explore, inquire, or investigate. Explore, inquire, or investigate. Think of the person in position of authority at the top of the business when they embrace a problem curiously. That signals that everything, although it may not be okay, we're strong enough to face it. We don't need to run. We don't need to be self-deceptive either as a way of running without moving. We don't need to run as in just avoid it or blame one another. There's there's a safety. There's a safety in action that's implicit in the curious leader. An eager wish to explore, inquire, or investigate in human behavior, it's the engine of learning, growth, innovation, and empathy. Types: epistemic curiosity, a desire for knowledge; empathetic curiosity, a desire to understand one's feelings; diversive curiosity, attraction to novelty and new stimuli. Those are types of curiosities. So the analyst desires to know about the company, about the analyst desires to know about the company, all facets related to the company in that capacity. And research takes discipline. It implies discipline. There's a sense of preparation and discipline that goes with research because it takes time. It's an absorbing, it's an absorbing meditation, and the desire to know, to have all the information available, a desire to understand other people's feelings, empathetic curiosity. That's going to help integrate. That's going to help lower the natural fight or flight response that happens in times of conflict, which those times of conflict are inevitable, both on the downturn and the upswing. So there's camaraderie and teamwork as opposed to infighting and silos, empathetic curiosity. I do think that the desire to know outside, so like the management that's focused on, that's curiously endeavoring into the unknown, it, that has a relationship with how reactive they'll be and how empathetic or contemptible they'll be to the team, to the customers. And the story of Osiris that we talk that guy, I've shared that so many times on the Culture Matters podcast, Rule 4 and Book 3 of Beyond Order, Peterson's books about Osiris and how he stopped paying attention. And that led to mutiny, essentially. Well, Osiris stopped paying attention, so he couldn't see the people closest to him that were about to mutinize. Where's Osiris's responsibility in that? Well, it's great because had he been paying attention, he would have been challenged with doing something about Seth. And that's before that got that far. And in that story, if you're not familiar with it, Osiris was an Egyptian who was an Egyptian myth, like a pharaoh or something of that nature, who built this grandiose society, the civilization, and everyone, was rich from it in food, water, wealth, et cetera. But ultimately, what gets you there, what got you here won't get you there. It took his eye off the ball. Interesting how that's like a cliche, take your eye off the ball. Stop paying attention to the future, the surroundings, and his number two, his brother, killed him because he wanted what he had without the work, but he wanted what he had. And so this the one of the lessons in that, and that's part of the story. There's a redemptive part of the story where Horus, the son of Osiris's corpse, essentially represents the individual's ability to see and the willingness to be curious and courageous and fight evil, solve the problem. So life has an interesting cycle to it where we stop paying attention. There's an opportunity for redemption always if someone's willing to take on that sacrifice. There's a lot of ways to interpret that, but ultimately, a lack of curiosity. You know, you stop pursuing curiously. So that if you have a desire for knowledge, that never ends. If you think you know it all and you stop pursuing knowledge, then you're sowing the seeds of the worst of humankind that will overtake you and bring forth the next iteration of knowledge, the next iteration of truth. And in some sense, this is maybe, well, yeah, absolutely inevitable with the life and death. There's some I don't know who said it, but science advances because all of the old scientists die, essentially. But there's wisdom in each of us that are in the midst of our lives, building our careers and our castles and want to be as valuable as possible to the people that we serve. The spirit of curiosity is that desire to know, the desire for knowledge. That isn't, so this is the argument I'm making for if you're going to be in the helping professions, being curious, the act and activity of curiosity will drive value creation. It will help separate the wheat from the chaff. And in an interpersonal sense, the empathetic curiosity can help team camaraderie and leadership. So the morphology of curiosity comes from curiositas, eagerness to know, careful, inquisitive, care, concern. Oh, this is important. Care. To care, care, care. Care has to do with passion. This is important. To care is where meaning comes from, purpose. It's tied to purpose, it's tied to action, it's tied to aim, it's tied to these like very fundamental human spirit components that drive productivity and performance. People have purpose. They have a purpose. An organization benefits from having a purpose, a driving force. And that's tied to its goal and how it communicates that and how it incentivizes and rewards. And the culture is always there. It just, you'll, it's incentivizing and disincentivizing different things based on all of these invisible threads in a Nietzschean sense. Care. But where does care play in here? Care, I have a vested interest in this outcome. Care, the provision of what is necessary for the health, welfare, maintenance, and protection of someone or something. Serious attention or consideration applied to doing something correctly or to avoiding damage or risk. I think if each individual cares, every individual that stops caring is more energy that's going to be taken on by the others. So the more people, and when you get to a certain ratio of people not caring, whether it's a company culture, a family, a community, a society, you get to a certain ratio of how many people stop caring. And it's too much weight for the people that do. And they leave the culture, they leave the company, they leave the family, they leave this community, they leave the society, they go to another one that is, re- if at the very least, not rewarding explicitly how much they care, but implicitly is just structured well enough that it's caring. It's it's structured enough to where those that care can thrive and get the most s- s- personal reward for the caring that they put into life. Caring is extremely important, and caring has a relationship with curiosity. People that care are curious, and the curious care. You know, when I think when the people in the company stop, that ratio gets too high, that will have a connection to what's happening in management. How on it are they? And then that brings us back to the essence of the conversation, which is some of the what's a core value of those in the helping profession, the trusted advisors, the consultants, those that do that coach, that are the accountability mechanisms for those within an organization, the executive coaches, right, or the organizational psychologists. There are many different contexts, those in the helping profession, but the spirit of curiosity lives within those that are conducting value creation. Care, verb, to feel concern or interest, to attach importance to something. That's to value it, to put it in a certain order. I value this more than this. That's a part of human, if, no matter what, we're valuing things. We're putting them in order in their proper place in a Piageotian sense. To look after and provide for the needs of someone. Care comes from caru or a noun, caru, or carrion, verb, meaning anxious thought, concern, sorrow. Ooh, that's so interesting. Concern, sorrow. Related to Pro-Germanic lament, grief. Interestingly, care originally meant to worry, showing the depth of emotional investment the words imply. This is very interesting because if the background of care is to worry, think about it. Ooh, if we stop, well, because life, anxious, the unknown, nature, the inevitability of death, of destruction is so obviously it's guaranteed, but also 1,000 years ago, it's a different world. What if to care is a hedge against risk? If the etymology is it meant sorrow or grief, well, yeah, that's the foreshadow. When you stop caring, there's going to be sorrow and grief. It's like we're more proactive. We are more proactive, or that would be the hope in this more educated, self-aware, connected, force, vision-oriented, independent. We can speak, we can think, we can write, we can be individuals in a vastly greater sense than in the past. That's an assumption I'm making to make this argument. If we care, we'll lower the suffering, it's a hedge against the risk. And curiosity, to care means to value enough to invest in attention, time, or emotion, whether it's people, ideas, or projects. Care is the bridge between intention and integrity. In culture, when people care, they commit, they show up, and they contribute. Curiosity. CEOs who trumpeted curiosity. Bezos, obsessed with customer curiosity, built Amazon's model on constantly asking what the customer wants next. What does the customer want next? So if we go back to Peter Drucker, the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. You create the customer by the first iteration of a solution. You keep a customer by being ahead of what they need next. They might be loyal to the brand, but if the products and services don't live up to the brand, then it becomes a backwards relationship, a toxic relationship. They're doing more for the company than it is doing for them, and that's a trade-off. The company is supposed to give more value than the cost of their capital and the capital to the customer. So Bezos is saying we're obsessed with customer, what they need next. What do they want next? That's placing a focus point, an attention. I think that the culture, things in their proper order from a consultative, like a theoretical, in consulting theory of like business theory, the attention is on the customer. The investment, the attention is the conversations and the thinking is around the customer. Everyone is looking at the customer and talking with one another. And when I say everyone, I mean employees, right? Are talking about, thinking about the customer. That's going to come from management being focused on the customer. How they talk and think and relate to, if they're focused on them, that models the values that are discussed. So they're real, like they have meaning. There's trust in them. Because when the management stops thinking about the customer, they're, well, who are they thinking about? Themselves. And when they think about themselves, one of the interesting ironies of like the customer or of company culture, the management has become overly focused on its people, and it becomes a form of control versus it becomes a form of control and an abdication of responsibility to customers and shareholders than a means of promoting opportunity, promoting. I like this. What white space or opportunity, as Clark Beecher said in episode 979 of the Culture Matters podcast, an unintentional undermining of white space and opportunity. The company is investing and supporting in its people. The conversations from a capital and a resources standpoint, and this is where the tensions lie in the system, is that once you become big enough, you serve more than one master as an organization. And that's where the advisors and the influences outside of the organization, shareholders, governance, advisors, becomes more and more important of what their core values are and their integrity, because that can actually be a necessary antidote to the chaos that arises from where attention gets broken. Curiosity is a naturally um, a natural. It's like the flow in a pond in a the flow of water. If it stays stagnant, it becomes diseased and like it destroys all the life in the pond. But if it's moving, the fish can continue to swim, and life is still in the pond. The water needs to be moving. Curiosity is the movement. It's a it's a spirit. It's the spirit of movement. Ed Catmull of Pixar said, he cultivated a studio where creative curiosity thrived, valuing exploration, risk, and candor. Satya Nadella of Microsoft reinvented Microsoft, shifting from know-it-all to learn-it-all culture, emphasized curiosity as a leadership quality in his book, Hit Refresh. Historical contexts where curiosity played a defining role. The scientific revolution. Thinkers like Galileo, Kepler, Newton challenged orthodoxy through relentless curiosity. It reshaped humanity's understanding of nature and sparked modern science. The Renaissance, 14th to 17th century, curiosity in art, anatomy, and philosophy broke centuries of dogma. Leonardo da Vinci embodied curiosity across disciplines. Another is the age of exploration, the 15th to the 17th century, driven by the desire to explore the unknown for better and worse. Curiosity about trade, geography, and culture expanded human connectivity. In the internet age, the creation of the web and search engines like Google made curiosity scalable and global. I can speak from now experience integrating knowledge bases through an AI into my own, through this value of curiosity, research, questioning, like, right, so inquiry, the acceptance or the connections of thoughts and ideas is speeding up the research, is speeding up and almost it's like deepening and broadening the context because the content we can get so much content so quickly. So the effort and the energy, if the discipline is there, this is where it connects. If you haven't listened to the Culture Matters podcast on preparation and urgency, when you combine the spirit of preparation, which takes discipline, forward thinking, self-sacrifice, and urgency, and you combine that with curiosity, this is where the opportunity, where artificial intelligence and real intelligence meet. And it's like an exponential growth curve. That is what we are the age that we live in is unbelievable from an individual standpoint. Because when you take these core values and you synthesize them through artificial intelligence, you're getting faster, you're getting to where you could go alone faster. And the speed and the engagement can lead to more depth, even more depth. It's a compounding, because the education from the past, the knowledge from the past compounds. Knowledge compounds, um, and you're making more and more and more and more connections. Curiosity plays a role in that. Research, discipline, preparation, urgency, knowledge. The analyst researches, the advisor has to ask the questions. I would say content plus context equals advice, like quality advice. It's an interactive, engaging process. It takes time and it's nuance, it's art as well as science. And curiosity plays a role in in the necessary relationships, whether it's advisor to company or consultant to company, advisor to advisee. Curiosity plays a role in the development, that multi-dimensional curiosity. of knowledge, of other people, of general. It plays a role, and culture matters would not be what it is today. And I do not believe it could be what it can be. It won't be what it could be in the absence of the curious spirit. Now, the curiosity is benefited from other values, which we'll talk about in other episodes of the Culture Matters podcast. Please share this with a friend, someone that is in the helping professions. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time.